Hello, and welcome to A Word of Hope. I'm Brother Joe Trout, coming to you for the conversion of St. Paul. And this feast brings us a really dramatic first reading, this story of Paul on the road to Damascus who encounters the risen Christ. Paul, who is on his way to persecute Christians, hears Jesus saying to him, "Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me?" "Who are you, sir?" Paul thinks he's dead, he's a charlatan, and God changes Paul's life really by yelling at him. Right? It's an interesting thing to ponder that sometimes a loving word is actually not what God provides for us, that the change in Paul comes from a rebuke. Why are you persecuting me? Right? And as we know, Paul becomes one of the great apostles of the early church and a significant contributor to the entire New Testament. Yet he's not the only figure in this story that has a life dependent upon God and changed by God. Ananias also has a vision that Ananias is told Saul is going to come to him and that God plans to make Saul a part of his plan of salvation, that Ananias needs to actually help Saul. Ananias rightfully is concerned. Saul? You want me to help Saul? This seems dangerous and bad and a terrible idea. You want me to help Saul? And God asks him to trust. Ananias does. Ananias has a slightly less dramatic encounter than Saul does. And yet, I suspect many of us probably also haven't had that kind of direct instruction from God on how to take part in his plan. There's another, even more interesting figure to me, or at least one that I ponder of late. What about all these people who were with Saul on the journey? I mean, presumably they too were enemies of Christians, although we have no record of what happens with them later. They're not named. We don't even really know what their experience of it was because the Acts of the Apostles gives us two contradictory accounts, that at one point they hear the voice but don't see a light, at another point they see the light but don't hear the voice. There's a lot of ambiguity about them. There's one striking detail. They take Saul by the hand and lead him to Ananias. Without these companions, Paul is left blind on the side of the road. He needs someone to guide him to Ananias. It's really easy in our church to focus on the Sauls and the Ananiases. And they're important, to revere them as an important part of our faith and the great work that God has done. There's a place in every one of those stories as well for the hidden hand, guiding them along the way. That's part of the beauty of our church, that it is made up of the great saints and the hidden saints. It's made up of so many different people taking part in a beautiful, beautiful whole body of Christ. And that we each have our own place. And the dignity of our life is to do as we have been asked to do. So if you have not had a moment like Paul in your life, that's just fine. The question for us is always, what are we doing for Christ? What are we doing to bring about his work in the world in the very interesting dimensions of our own lives, that God can make all of us unique and different and a beautiful piece of his church? Have a wonderful day, and God bless.